Hey, team, welcome back to another great episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. Today, I'm joined by Eric Paulson. He is the GM at Belgrade Co-op up there in Minnesota, kind of in my home territory, not too far south of Long Prairie up there in that part of the world. So, do you guys get up that way? Do you do any business up in Todd County?
Yes, yep. So we span actually just north of Long Prairie is kind of our outskirts. So most of central Minnesota we're covering right now.
Okay, cool, man. Well, thanks for taking the time to be on the show. I'm excited to dive in, have a conversation today.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate the invite. It's been good to follow along and glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, awesome. So, well, Eric, you get the same question as everybody at the onset. What does it mean for you to be intentional?
Yeah, so I once he sent me that question and taught explained a little bit on this podcast, I've thought a lot about that specific word intentional, and the best way that I could relate it to is servant leadership. And the way I say that is I look a lot at our business, and I've always been a numbers guy my entire life, and to be able to look at how our business succeeds and where we need to go into the future, I've been a big proponent on if you don't have the people, you don't have to worry about having the business. And from an intentionality standpoint, I focus a lot on where our staff is today and how can I really service their needs, whether that be close to retirement and starting to begin succession planning, maybe a younger employee looking for that next promotional opportunity or step up in their career, or just being a resource and providing the tools necessary to make sure that an individual is happy with their job and can provide that work-life
Mm.
balance. So I focus a lot on my intentions on how I can service the needs of our employees. And I'm a big believer that if you have the people in the right place and enjoying their job, the business and the numbers aspect will take care of itself.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Yeah, I love that. I love that framework of servant leadership and really using that mindset to dive into all those specific things. And I like sometimes getting to work with numbers guys and interviewing some of them on the show because I'm less so, right. I'm more of a lead by feel kind of a situation. But I
Yep.
love talking to numbers guys because sometimes you look at the world through a little bit different lens. And so I'm wondering, how do you apply that to things like talent retention and talent attraction and things like that? How do you apply that to culture? When you think about it through that lens of being maybe a little bit more analytical than someone such as myself, how do you apply that to those things that are important, like attraction, retention, and culture?
Right. So the retention piece is big, and in today's business, agriculture, probably more so than anybody, but ever since COVID really came about over the last couple of years, it's changed the way that we do business. And as far as retention, I look a lot initially at understanding the cost and putting the numbers into what it would take me to pay a recruiting firm or publishing certain ads or putting all the marketing dollars into recruiting and sourcing a new employee, and then just the
Yep.
training that it takes to bring an individual within our system, um, teach them the culture that we have here, what our goals and what our mission is overall as a business, and then obviously the most important piece is just the time and effort that it takes to put all that together. And when you accumulate all of that information and the numbers, the finances, the time that it takes to recruit an employee, it
Mhm.
makes it the retention piece a lot easier, I've learned. So it makes it, if it's a financial piece that maybe an employee is, the markets change from a financial viability standpoint and deserves
Yep.
an unexpected raise at some point throughout the year, or just employee appreciation gatherings. It's a lot easier to spend those dollars on retaining talent once you have figured out the amount of cost that it takes to bringing in a new person into the co-op from the start. So we
Yeah.
put a lot of effort into retention and employee appreciations and making sure everybody here feels that value and appreciation as a co-op employee.
Yeah. If you had to ballpark, say, an early career employee, what's the cost to acquire, get someone trained up? If you're looking, say, maybe the 25 to 30, sort of early career in that stage, salesperson, operations person, maybe
Yep.
future location manager, high potential, right? What's someone like that cost to get into your business?
Yep. So when I look at um, early employment and a lot of our younger generation that we're bringing into our system right now, really the cost that I have associated to it is a year's worth of paying that individual a salary or a normal yearly wage. And so to
Wow.
bring that back to a number, really, I think I use $50,000 a lot as a ballpark by the time you hire a
Hmm.
recruiting firm, bringing that individual in, the training, time and effort, and kind of deviating away from our existing employees' time and effort to make sure that that person is trained
Yeah,
up. So yeah, I put $50,000 a lot to that number in what if I spend that amount or less on retaining our employees or doing certain things throughout the year that I feel I'm money ahead for our organization moving forward.
for sure. Yeah, that's good. I'm always interested in what different people think those numbers are, because one of our claims with our programs is, we know, based on interviews of clients that have gone through our coaching programs, those that participate are more likely to stay.
Yeah,
They have a positive association with their employer who provided the type of service that we provide to them, right? And so, we're like, well, what is the value? How do you track that? What,
yeah.
measuring against that 50, what is, we're charging maybe $3,000 or something per person for a training program or coaching program, a full year of it. How do we stack that against it? It's just an interesting math problem to kind of work out.
Yeah, and I've been extremely, I guess, fortunate from that regard, just because I'm new with my company here the last year and a half, and just looking
Yep.
at the recruitment and everything that went into bringing me into the co-op. It's interesting to see those numbers firsthand, and I know our board of directors will give me a bad time occasionally on how big of an expense I was coming into the organization. So it gave me kind of a firsthand experience to see what dollars were truly uh, put into everything that brings an
Sure.
employee into the organization from the start.
Yeah, you bet. Well, Eric, give us a little background on yourself and where you were, how you got here. The job now. We certainly understand the GM role in a cooperative setting, but talk to us a little bit about your background and how you got here.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in West Central Minnesota. So where I am today, up in Belgrade, is kind of a move back home for me. Grew up.
Good.
Really, I tell everybody that I learned agriculture the hard way. So I didn't grow up in a farming family. We had a neighbor down the road that was a good family friend that I grew up throwing bales and picking rock and doing all of the
Hmm.
younger generation stuff that I feel everybody tells me that those are the jobs that build character. So I do feel
Yep.
everybody should experience that at some point in their lifetime. But ended up going to college out at Northern State in Aberdeen, and I've spent my entire working career from a business standpoint in cooperatives. So I have a
Hmm.
deep passion, a deep understanding of the cooperative world, and um,
Cool.
started out with internships, really learning the operations and how everything works, and then my first job out of college was a sales agronomist. So I got to understand the
Mm.
seed, chemical, fertilizer, really all the inputs that go into these agriculture fields that grow bushels at the end of the day. So it was a good experience for me there, and spent a few years doing that, and just slowly worked my way up into managing locations and oversaw a complete grain division for a few years, and really before I was COO of a large co-op out in South Dakota where I spent 3 years really overseeing our
Hmm.
operations. Now I've been with Belgrade Co-op for a year and a half, so that kind of gives an overview of my 10-year career within the co-op business
Cool.
ever since graduated college. And I tell everybody that I'm extremely good at managing chaos. So I'm happily married now for 11 years, and I got two sets of twins at home
Oh, wow.
now. I got four little ones that are 4.5 years old, two boys, and 1.5-year-old boy girl twins. So they keep me occupied when I'm not at work.
Oh, man. Well, they're definitely building your capacity for
Yep.
uh for for all the chaos that you get to practice at work. Man, that's wild. That's wild. we have 6 kids in 2 different countries between my wife and I, so I thought that was chaos, but I think you might have us beat.
Yeah, I tell everybody it's unique and we're fortunate because we don't know any better. Everybody asks us how we do it, but the fact
Yeah,
that we only know what it's like to raise twins, it definitely makes it more fun and
right,
easier to not know the difference of what it is to raise just a single kid at a time either.
right. I mean, we talk about efficiency,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
right?
But yeah, we usually outside of work and hanging out with the family. I'm everything outdoors, so I enjoy hunting, fishing, golfing, snowmobiling, kind of anything that you can think of that's outdoors and your ability to do in the Midwest. I'm all about it. So I try and maintain a little bit of that work-life balance too, and continue to promote that within an organization as well.
Yeah. Is that well received? Are you able to get some of your guys to really pay attention to keeping, trying to keep stress down and make sure they get to enjoy life a little bit? There's always the busy times of the year. We understand that, but how's that
Yes.
playing out inside your country or company?
Yeah, so I would say I'm very big on family culture, and how that
Mhm.
incorporates to our culture is really COVID changed the way that we can do business. It's brought a lot of new technology capabilities to our business to allow people to work from home and do that hybrid role. And really, we put a lot of focus on making sure that our staff maintains that work-life balance. We're in the process of flipping over a lot of our staff, so a lot of the baby boomers are starting to retire within our business. So we're
Mhm.
recruiting a lot of the younger generation that's in my position that has young kids at home. Everybody that has kids continues to tell us how fast it goes, so don't miss those opportunities as they grow up. So
Yep.
I would say that we continue to preach that, and work will always be here when you come back, but we do encourage our staff, knowing the seasonality demand of our business, that when we get to our kind of quote unquote off season during this time of the year, that we encourage our staff to get out, spend some time doing their hobbies or home projects, or
Mhm.
really just getting away from work and having that rest, relaxation and reset time period before coming back.
Yeah, that's good, man. I'm glad that you guys are keeping that a priority and making sure that that's something that people are into. How in addition to that, what else is important to you as it pertains to building that culture within this organization? You're 18 months into it now. I always tell people, I said, I think after about 3 years, right, we get to run out of excuses. You're past the point of that's the organization you inherited. Now it's
Yeah,
yours, so you're almost halfway to that point. So,
right.
what's important to you as you build this culture at Belgrade?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate coming in to this organization. Our culture was already very strong, very family oriented, and it really worked out well for me coming in as the new general manager, because all of the principals that were at this organization were the same ones that I was looking to bring in. So I have the fortunate situation to I give a lot of credit to the previous general manager, and I can tell you from my standpoint, the biggest compliment I've been given is our previous GM that was in this role for 27 years. So it has a rich 50-year history prior to me of only having two general managers run this place, and that culture's been instilled throughout that 50-year time period. So and I would say the ethics or morals of that culture are based on family,
Mhm.
accountability, and the work-life balance. So we focus a lot on different employee appreciations and making sure that our team is comfortable with each other outside of work. We use the saying, you don't have work doesn't always have to be work. So we try and get some company events scheduled to allow our staff to hang out with each other as well as their families, and get to know each other's husbands and wives and kids. And working and living in a small town community, you see everybody outside of the work setting on a regular basis. So we put a big emphasis on
Mhm.
making sure that the support is there, both in the office as well as outside of the workplace. That I had one rule when I came into the co-op and kind of to instill the culture piece, and that one rule is that you support this co-op and you support each other. And I think that's been felt throughout our entire organization as far as individuals checking in after one another and really being there on the good days to pump each other up, and on the bad days there to each other back up. So
Yeah, keep
it's been a
supporting each
good
other.
ride
Yep.
so far.
Cool. I like it. I like it a lot. And that, man, right where you are, since I grew up there, I know what it's like. That's especially in that that small town culture. It's such an important component that we stay together. I was just back for my mom's 80th birthday, February 27th. She turned 80, and the weekend before that, we did a surprise party. And so I went back, and so I couldn't go to stay at my mom's house, which we normally would do when we go home. We're
Yeah,
coming from halfway across the country now, so it's a long ways.
right.
And so I stayed with my niece and nephew up there in Melrose, and they've got about 70 head of dairy cattle, and just 130 acres, and not just a little, fairly small operation. But then they both work full time. But what was striking to me is how integrated in the community they are. Right, my nephew is on the fire department. They're integrated into. They're still connected and talking to the people that they grew up with. My niece and I are very close in age, so I grew up with a lot of these people too.
Right. Yeah.
And and it's amazing to me. I've been gone for quite a while, so I don't interact with these folks as much. And but then we hosted the party at the Legion, so of course I
Yep.
see everybody from the community that's still there, and it's really cool to see just how integrated and how important that local community really is to them.
Right. And
So
it's funny that you say that, Legion. We actually have a fish fry coming up at the Melrose Legion here in about 2 weeks. But yeah, to
do
your
you?
point, um, we we encourage our staff, and we're very fortunate that we have half a dozen of them that are involved in the local fire department or
Mm-hmm.
emergency response team. And it is one of those things that you see everybody outside of work, and when my kids are running around the office, everybody knows who they are, and kind of looks out for
Mm-hmm.
one another. So it's whether you, I always say that if you want people to know your business, they're gonna know it whether you want them to or not in the small town community. And I've always thought
That's right.
that's a pretty cool thing, because I grew up with that, and that everybody is um, in support of each other and looking after one another, and it kind of helps build that family culture, I think, within the co-op too. We focus a lot on making sure that we understand the roots that got us here, as we pride ourselves
Mm-hmm.
in a small hometown co-op, and something that no matter how far we expand or how much we grow, that's one thing that we continue to focus on, that we never lose sight of maintaining that reputation. And I think that brings a lot of comfortability and confidence into our customers around the area as well. Just knowing that they can walk into my office at any point in time and have a conversation, and employees are really there to look after their best interest.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about some of the ups and downs over the course of your career. What's been one of those big challenges, Eric, that you've had to overcome?
I would say the biggest challenge I've had to overcome in my career has had to deal with COVID. And the reason I say
Mm-hmm.
COVID is it brought a lot of opportunities for us to continue to look at our business from a different perspective, and look at how we do things today and how we can potentially do things differently. But I think the biggest challenge that came with it is it brought a lot of unnecessary stress to all of our staff, really outside of the workplace. So everybody uh, has a scenario where they had a friend or a loved one that was probably affected by COVID in some way, if it wasn't them personally. And due to the side effects and everything that came with that, there's obviously some loved ones that lost their lives, or that have reoccurring lasting side effects that came with that. And it made it difficult to manage a business, because that all of those personal factors are influencing their day-to-day lives. And it's really, how do we make sure that we keep our business going forward, but also being able to give them the necessary time, and offer
Mm-hmm.
a helping hand, or as a resource to help them get through those scenarios. So it brought
Sure.
a lot of stress in the ag community, and then just everybody's personal lives, that made it a challenge to make sure that everybody focuses on their mental health and make sure that
Hmm.
that family piece is taken care of before the work piece. And it was a
Yep.
challenge to navigate through.
It was definitely a challenge for all of us, my business included, being in the event space obviously did not go well
Right.
as it pertains to continuing for a couple of years, and we definitely we had to fight through that. I probably cite that as my biggest challenge as well. Just as you brought that up, I said I think that's mine too. There's been a lot of them, learning how to grow a business, how to run a business, getting your attracting good people to your business, and just sticking it out, being for on my side, being in the entrepreneurial world. But that was the toughest one. I had to call an employee 2 days after his daughter was born, and lay him off because our
Yeah.
cash flow had dried up, and that was
Right.
tough. Thank God he's still with me after after all that. I was able. He's now with me almost back to full time, and thank God he didn't hold that against me. I think everybody understood, but that
Yeah.
didn't make it easy,
Right.
right?
And I think
It-
that when you say the entrepreneurial, I think that brought a challenge too, just because during COVID, when everything was shut down, I like to tell everybody that we have some of the best staff in the industry, and those staff are skilled in honestly more ways than just what they do as a job at the co-op. So what that I think COVID brought was a challenge to retaining employees, because a lot of people saw maybe a side gig or some other hobby that they were interested in, that they could use COVID, use technology, kind of use the new world
Mhm.
that we live in as a way to do their own business. So it made retaining that talent a bigger priority too, just to make sure that we kept them at the co-op, and tried to relate and give them that flexibility if they do have that side job or that passion that they want to
Yeah,
continue to live off of as well too.
cool, man. Well, talk to us. So that was the biggest challenge. What's been the biggest win in your career?
So my biggest win, I would say, is it would have been my previous role out in South Dakota. That I can, when I say from the start that I focus a lot on our people and figuring out the next steps, that as I transition roles, it always started as a sales agronomist. You get a big sale, and it was automatically my successes is what I built my confidence on, and had the wins. And really in this role, I'm proud to say that I was influential in an individual that he was a chemical warehouse manager, and really just a
Mm.
laborer at one of our agronomy locations. And I sat down with about a 30-minute conversation with him just to figure out what he wanted to do with his career and where he ended up. And over my 3-year span at that co-op, he went from that position, and today he's actually running one of their locations and a top salesman within that organization. So it makes
Wow.
me proud to look back and say that I was able to help him get to where he wanted to get to as an end goal for his career, and to be a part of that along the way, and just act as a resource. He still calls me and keeps a relationship today. So it's fun to hear his success out in
Nice.
South Dakota as well.
That's awesome. That's so cool. When you have those specific pieces of influence on people because of your leadership, that's the kind of stuff that keeps you going, even when you go through the more challenging pieces
Yeah,
that are really hard. You know.
right.
Hmm. Cool. Who's been somebody you've really admired over the course of your career?
Yep. So I would say both personally and professionally, um, it's really my dad. And why I say
Hmm.
that is I grew up in a household, was very fortunate growing up, and my dad was a hospital executive. So he was a CEO of 3 different hospitals throughout his 30+ year career. And it
Wow.
really took me until about the last 5 years to understand just the stress that executives go through. And when I look
Hmm.
back at my childhood growing up and all of the morals and principles that were instilled in me, I never saw the stress or the work problems or any of that come to the house. And I tell my
Hmm.
dad that to this day, that I respect the fact that he had that ability to successfully run an organization, but not allow that to affect his family time, or really live in the moment when he was outside of the work environment. So it's something that it's
Yeah.
taken my lifetime to really understand. Now being in this type of position, that I put a lot of focus on. Okay, let work be work, and let the home life be home. And it's something I've truly admired that he was able to do that, because I never realized it over the course of my lifetime, just the decisions that he was making on a regular basis, and then he could come home and play baseball catch in the front yard. So it's pretty
Mhm.
individuals that are able to separate that with their upbringing of their family too.
Yep. Well, it sounds like a man of great capacity, which is one of the leading indicators of success that we talk about in our work at Thrive Today. When we talk about what are the leading indicators that bring us to lagging success or the lagging results, right?
Yep.
And one of the buckets of those indicators is capacity. Do I have the mental, the physical, the emotional capacity to do the job well? You know, and the job is not just what you get paid to do, right? It's I might be a business owner or a CEO today, but at the end of the day, I'm also a husband, I'm also a dad. We're doing this, and the kids are out of school today, and they're texting me, and they're like, hey, we're at the park, can you pick us up?
Yep.
you know, and we get pulled in all these different directions all the time, right? So we have to have great capacity to be able to do, what could and what sometimes are very, what could be and what sometimes are very stressful jobs.
Right. Yep.
So good. What have you been reading? What have you been listening to that you would recommend to others?
So I've always been a fan of the TV show Shark Tank, and growing up
Uh-huh.
my entire life watching sports. Really, Mark Cuban has been influential, and I think he's, if there is a person that I look at that I idolize in the business world, I would say it's him. And just in what he's done, and he really
Hmm.
created a book that it's he wrote it. It's How to Win at the Game of Business, and what it
Hmm.
is it relates to what his upbringing was. So when I talk about the family, kind of from his childhood up to buying the Dallas Mavericks for the first time, and what that business or what that organization turns into today, and it comes a
Hmm.
lot down to the uh, speaking to your capacity standpoint of mind over matter. That if you have that will
Hmm.
to win, or that drive or motivation to excel at whatever you happen to be doing, whether it's in agriculture as a truck driver, an applicator, an executive, it's really what do you need to do for yourself, and how do you access those resources around you to make sure you get to the top of where you want to go in your own career. And he's obviously a very influential man in the world today, and
Hmm.
it's fun to see and listen to him talk about where it started, and just some
Hmm.
decisions, and I guess the will to not fail, or the will to succeed, that got him to where he is today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Mark Cuban, what was the name of the book again?
So the name of the book is How to Win at the Sport of Business.
How to Win at the Sport of Business. Okay, cool. That's a unique recommendation. That's the first, I think, the first time anybody's brought that one up. So I'll have to check into that.
Yeah, yeah, he's I would say it's Shark Tank is on my household TV each night, so I'm a big fan of Mark Cuban and everything he's done for business and entrepreneurs, and he's pretty cool to
Hmm.
follow.
Awesome. I like it. All right. Well, last couple of questions as we start to head in for the landing strip here today, Eric. What do you do to keep your energy up? Got a lot going on. You got 4 kids under 5 at home, 2 sets of twins. You got a business to run. You got a lot of people that depend on you. How do you keep your energy going?
Yep. So I would say that it's not necessarily a problem for me, just because everybody around me would tell you that I'm kind of the eternal optimist, that I'm extremely positive individual that actually have a lot of my staff that do a good job of keeping me level headed and playing devil's advocate on certain scenarios. Because when I get my mind on something, I'm 110% to try and figure out how we get to that solution. So, and I think about the energy piece. I pride myself, and I get that energy, or that the juice is flowing when I'm able to see our team succeed. And a lot of that is
Hmm.
focused on the way I worked up to this point in my career as a sales agronomist, I enjoy hearing stories of our guys going out and getting that brand new customer that they've been working on, or our gals in the office here finding another efficiency or money savings. And it's fun for me to hear those stories and then really to see us build as a business off of those. So my energy, I think, feeds off of the success of our team the most, which really gets me going and excited to see where our co-op goes here in the future as well.
Nice. Awesome. That's good, man. All right. Well, so that talks a little bit about that. What's the biggest thing you're going to work on this year? You want to improve on personally, professionally? What's on Eric's to-do list?
Yep. So personally, I'd tell you my kids at home are getting into the school age, so I'm finally learning how to make that adjustment and navigate through kids' activities and
Yeah.
trying to keep that all going in the right direction. And I bring a lot of that to the work environment, just because we're in a place and we have a lot of similar staff that are right alongside me that have young kids that are either in school age or start in the process of starting their family. So professionally, I would say that our focus this year is a lot on succession planning. So we have a long tenured staff here that I'm proud to say we have half of our co-op staff has been here 10 plus years, which we're very fortunate to have that type of retention. But we're also getting to the point that those same individuals are wanting or have given me notice that in the next 1 to 5 years, they really want to start either transitioning completely out or moving to a more kind of a part-time role. So our focus this year is really building that bench of succession planning and making sure that we have the people internally. If I'm a big proponent of promoting from within, so really navigating through those staff changes and getting people in the right places to start developing for that next step. And or if we don't have that in place, looking externally and getting our organization set up from a personal standpoint for the future.
Love it, man. Well, that's a big job.
Yeah, it's
That's
exciting.
a big job.
I tell a lot of our senior leadership that we're in the process of transitioning some of those roles out right now as well, and it's exciting to uh, look at it from that standpoint, but also this next generation of staff that's coming into our co-op. It's a good recruitment and retention tool when you can tell them that there's a path of growth going forward too in our organization,
Yep.
especially in the small hometown territory too, that you can really allow an employee to grow here and for years to come. It brings a lot of excitement to the Belgrade territory.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a great territory for agriculture. It's such a great mix of, traditional row crop. You get some dairy stuff mixed in there. You got some turkeys around there. You've got, I
Right.
mean, all kinds of livestock. I'm trying to remember. I mean, just driving through the roads, and I've spent so much of my life driving around the roads in that area, hog
Yeah.
farms, you name it, man. I mean, it's got to be one of the most diverse uh, at scale agriculture regions in the
Yeah.
country,
Yeah. It
you
was
know?
one of the conversation topics to when I first started at the co-op that uh, I asked the board of directors and our previous GM kind of what's the one thing that makes Belgrade, Minnesota, and our Belgrade co-op territory unique. And when you mentioned the livestock, and there's so at one point here, depending on the cropping year, there's 13 different crops that are grown in about a 30-mile radius of Belgrade, which I come from
Wow.
corn and bean territory, so it's fun to have something
Yeah.
new every day of the week too.
Yep. Do you guys get into sugar beets at all too?
Yes,
Is that
yep, we get
one
into
of yeah.
yep, sugar beets, potatoes, beets,
Yep.
peas, corn. Yeah, you name it, and it's probably getting grown somewhere around here.
Yeah. Yeah. You can you've got sweet corn, peas. I mean, just all the interesting stuff that's so it's a cool area, and man, you got a big job, and congrats on the role and the 18 months of success, and look forward to hearing about the next 18 months. We're definitely gonna have to bring you on for a future episode and see how things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate the time. I think intentional agribusiness leader podcast is great, and I love what you're doing, and appreciate the time, Mark.
Cool. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you.